Maurice Jones Drew, Mojo on Monday. Glad to have you back, and another loss for the Jags. It's the same old story, man. How about this? If I told you the Jags going into Kansas City, and I know it's a really uphill battle, they're 10-point underdogs. They get an onside kick early. They're +3 in the turnover margin. They limit the Chiefs to 3 possessions in the second half, courtesy of a 9-minute drive by the offense, and they lose by 10. Like, would you believe that?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where you're dealing with, the top of the top, right? And I thought the defense really showed up and played exceptionally well against Patrick Mahomes, right? To hold the Chiefs to 27 points, to create 3 turnovers and have some big hits and play with guys were flying around and all that was awesome. I thought there was a lot you gain from that. Now, obviously, the only thing you want to gain is a win, but that's the best of the best. I mean, that's the top team in the National Football League next to the Philadelphia Eagles, with probably the MVP of the league playing at a very high level. So, to me, defensively, I thought that was what you were looking for. Now, offensively, you got to kind of figure out a way to get it going, right? Having touchdowns called back for penalties. Those are things you can't do when you're playing the creme de la creme of the league.
It's interesting you bring that up on the defensive side because more people are mad about their defense today than anything else. Like the offense had a drop by Kirk, and then the penalty that you said brought the touchdown back. They have 2 missed field goals as well. I mean, they easily should have had 23 points, if not 27 points, and maybe more. I know not everything's going to go right for you in a football game, but the defense looks like at times guys are wide open. How much of that is Mahomes and Reed, and how much of that is this defense still trying to figure things out with a bunch of young players, do you think?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I do think having Josh Allen cover a guy is never the best thing. And I know when you're in this 3-4 style defense, you don't want to always send them. You want to kind of do different blitzes. But why is he covering? You don't pay him to drop back. And it's always been my issue with 3-4 defenses, because built in the scheme of things, yes, they're supposed to drop, right? It's like having the Denver Broncos having Von Miller drop. Why would you do that? Does it make sense to have Von Miller covering and not rushing the quarterback? No. And so when you have top perennial pass rushers, you should always try to get them going forward as much as possible. And in that situation where they send 3, they flood the zone, they send 3 there. It's a common offensive scheme when you're playing a zone team, especially in the red zone, to send 3, 2 to the flat, 1 wheels up late with a post. That's hard on anybody to cover. And so I think in that situation, that's more schematics than anything else. But the other part is, like I said, I thought they did well. You can't expect, and there's not many teams that can hold that offensive scheme of Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy with the player Patrick Mahomes is, and Travis Kelce, right? He's found a way to really utilize his guys. And you add, obviously, Juju, who got injured, and hopefully he's okay. Scantling, who played well. Then you had Tony, who made some miraculous catches, right? So they're still a very talented roster that, with that quarterback, makes them pretty tough to cover.
I kind of, it's funny you saying this, and I was in the press box, and I'm kind of sharing that sentiment a little bit. Listen, it's the Chiefs' offense. You're going to give stuff up. They get 30 a game. The Jags allowed 27. Now 20 in the first half, so it kind of felt like, this could turn into 45. And that's where it goes. It's like there's streaks where this defense actually does a good job. They got a red zone turnover on a fumble. They got another interception with Cisco. The other one came on a special teams play. But, they had some big hits by Cisco. The biggest problem right now, I think, Maurice Jones Drew, is people can't stand the fact, and I'm not saying they should, that the Jags can't get home on the pass rush. Josh Allen looks like he's in a little bit of a funk. Trayvon Walker's still finding his way. And if you don't get home with 4 against Patrick Mahomes, it's probably going to be a pretty long day.
Yeah, yes and no. I think yes and no. You can blitz Patrick Mahomes and try to play tight man coverage behind it. You can try to confuse him in certain things, but you do want to find a way and get creative with your pass rush. I watch all of the National Football League, and there's certain ways. Like, let's just say again, I call the Rams games on radio, even though they're not playing the best offensively. Defensively, they're finding ways to get Aaron Donald singled up. So they'll put 3 guys on one side, and they'll put Aaron Donald singled up on as the defensive end on the opposite side against whoever the worst player is, right? If it's the right tackle, or if it's the left tackle, or if it's the left guard, they'll find ways to create and get him a single matchup to get him going. Josh Allen has to understand that, when we do get you on these one-on-ones, you have to win. You have to win. There is no stalemate. There is no almost there. And so a lot of times when you do watch the Jags game, they're sending backs and tight ends to chip sometimes. And then other times they're leaving you singled up. And so if you wear down a defense enough, especially at pass rush with run the ball, screens, different things, those pass rushers get tired. And then you are able to single them up with your tackles and not have to have as much help. So they got to find some creative ways. And so first of all, they got to get them into third down, and then find some creative ways then to get to the quarterback and get their guys some single blocks.
Yeah, the Jags have to get more. They have to get home. You're right. They got to win those, and there were, I guess, 4 pressures for each of those guys, Trayvon Walker and Patrick Mahomes, but it just didn't get home enough to impact some of the plays they made. And they had drops, and they also had made a few poor throws early on for Patrick Mahomes. It took him a little bit to get in, but at the end of the day, it's 300 yards, it's 4 touchdowns, and the Kansas City Chiefs win the game. It's really interesting this year. We've seen flashes of brilliance from some of these guys, Maurice Jones Drew. You played in the league for a long time, and I guess how do you remember or now looking back at it, how you judge guys and how long you have to, even on the defensive side? We talk about quarterbacks, it might take a while. But like Devin Lloyd, the first month of the year, he played excellent. Like, he looked really all over the field. He was getting interceptions. It didn't look like he was lost. The last few weeks, the last month, he looks kind of lost, and it's more noticeable. He's still getting a stat here or there, but they benched him the last 2 weeks, Mojo. Like, it's really hard to tell right now. Is he a good player, or is he not a good player and he just had a good few weeks?
No. I think if you show the ability to make plays, then you're a good player in the National Football League. But this is what people have to realize. Each week, they're scheming to your weakness, right? So if there is a chink in the armor, if there's a thing that if his eyes aren't right, if there's things that he's not doing correctly, there's teams that are going to exploit that, right? You have to understand there's people paid on these rosters and in these buildings to just watch tape, literally to watch tape and figure out what works. And that was back when I was there. We had guys breaking down film, 3rd and long. What do they like to do? What are their blitz packages? Who's vulnerable? How do you do it? And then as a player, you watch tape to specifically say, like, how can I attack this guy? All right, our offensive coordinators doing the same thing. Our running game coordinators doing the same thing. The passing game coordinators doing the same thing. So you have 5 and 6, 7 guys trying to figure out how to dissect you. And that's what makes great players really good in the national, or really good players in terms of great, when they can figure out how to disguise their weaknesses or some of the things they don't do well. And so for him, he's a rookie, right? He's probably having a lot of eye violation. Mm-hmm. He's probably, a step too late here or not hitting the right gap there. And that comes with understanding the scheme, understanding how people are going to try to attack you, and understanding that you got to put more time in the film and in your craft in order to play at a high level.
And I think the Jags are getting a little bit of that, especially on the defensive side. They've had guys up and down, and some of that is youth and inexperience. And I think that exists. I do. But, once you get to week 10, week 11, they're going to come into week 12 off the bye. You got to fix some of those things too. And the Jags are shuffling some players around. They might just not be good enough in some spots at this point. On the other side of it,
let me tell you a story real quick. I'll tell you a quick story. My rookie year, I played really well, but I had a tell. Whether it was run or pass. And what's crazy is Mark Duffner, the great coach that he was, he waited all the way until May for me to find out if it was a tell or not. Which my rookie year had a really good year. May comes around, things are going well, and I remember Mike Peterson in 2007 screaming in probably OTA number 3, saying, "Oh, it's a run, it's a run, it's a run." And I'm like, how did they know it was a run? Mark Duffner pulls me to the side. He's now the Cincinnati Bengals. He says, look, man, anytime it's a run, you move your head super fast, left to right, left to right, left to right. But when it's a pass, you move your head left to right really slow because you're trying to see things. He was like, that's a thing that we saw, and I saw it during the season. I didn't say anything to you because I didn't want to mess with you, but you were telling whether it was a run or pass. And something that small, right? Again, it goes back to how some coaches, players, personnel people can see things and gives you a tell. And so I don't know if there's a tell that he's giving. I don't know what's going on because I haven't got a chance, obviously, to dissect the tape. But it's things like that. That's how strenuous the league is. Right? Yeah. They're looking for anyone that's going to give a tell or give you an advantage on every play. And so, again, this is why when you have a lot of young guys playing, you have to find a way to disguise coverage. You have to try to coach them to make it all look the same so that you can, obviously mess with the quarterback.
That's a really good story, by the way, and we know that in baseball. That's called tipping pitches, but we don't hear that much in football. Like, I haven't heard that kind of thing much, and it actually reminds me of a little bit of something that went on yesterday for the Jags on the offensive side. Trevor Lawrence in his postgame was like, it was almost like they knew what we were calling. Now, Andy Reid, very familiar with Doug Peterson. The Jags have a lot of stuff on tape, so it could strictly be that. But now you've got me thinking, it was like, well, did ETN do something in the backfield? Because, Mojo, every time they ran to the outside, Casey was all over it. Like, they absolutely dominated the Jags on the outside, anything there. And maybe it was just part of the plan. They knew the Jags were going to attack the outside. They've had a lot of success out there. But it just now you got me thinking a little bit. Maybe there's something to it. Because Trevor Lawrence, even in his postgame, said it was almost like they knew where we were going at times.
Well, this is the thing. When you watch ETN, the majority of his explosive runs are outside the tackle.
Yeah.
Right? They're outside. They're trying to get him on the edge. Well, again, this is why I said it was so important to keep James Robinson, because he runs in between the tackles, right? He can break those tackles, and he was strong enough to go. Travis has to learn to be able to run just as effective and as efficient inside in between the tackles as he does outside. And so if he can't do that, teams are just going to force him to run inside. It's the easiest thing to do. Another quick story, we played in our championship youth football game, which we won. We're the champs again, which was awesome.
Congrats.
But the team that we played them early in the year, and they had beat us on a lot of toss plays, like quick pitch plays. And so I said, well, our goal is to force them to do what they don't want to do, right? So if they want to run outside, we're going to make sure everyone's outside. And if they run this quick pitch play or anything outside, bubble screens, we're going to turn it back into the teeth of our defense. And we're going to make them run where they don't want to run. And that's another form of football where you force a team to do what they don't want to do. And can they excel at that? Can they be a good running game if they can't get outside and get on the edge? And that's kind of where you saw the Jags struggle a ton in their running game. They have to be able to do both. They got to be able to run inside and outside the same way.
Yeah, and ETN, by the way, said that in the second half they ran more inside zone. They had some success doing it, and maybe should have got to that a little bit earlier as well. Now, listen, you sound like because of that a coaching adjustment, you could have easily been the coach in Indianapolis this past week. I mean, move over, Jeff Saturday. Or maybe you might be the coach in Las Vegas by next week.
By next week, yeah.
No, I don't want to coach, guys. That's not for me.
That's what Jeff Saturday said.
Yeah, that's what he said. He was in the booth, man.
Ursay pulled the Brinks truck up.
No, I mean, obviously, you got to understand, I coach because I don't coach for money. I do broadcasting and those things in the job. Coaching is something I enjoy doing. And it's kind of like when I started playing golf in Jacksonville at the age of 20. It was fun at first. And then when you start getting really competitive in it and you start getting pretty good, then it stops becoming fun. It becomes more of a job, and you start screaming at yourself because you're shooting 79 and 78, but you could have went 76. Like, well, I was just happy when I was happy when I was shooting 90, right? On Sawgrass. It was good. I hit a good shot. I was happy about it. And so for me, I enjoy coaching youth football. I just don't think I could coach I don't think I'd have the time and the energy to coach at the highest level.
What was your take on all that? And what was the talk out there? I mean, if we had you on the show last week, I got to believe you would have been killing the move, because Rasheed Mathis did. It's like, what are we doing here?
I still don't agree with the move. I'm not saying that Jeff Saturday wasn't, doesn't deserve a chance or anything. This has nothing to do with Jeff Saturday, but there's a process, right? You have coaches that have coached in this league for 30, 40 years who've been trying to get head coaching jobs, and you pull a guy off of TV to be a head coach. Like that's embarrassing. Like that's tough on guys that have really sacrificed and put in the things. And some of the things that Jeff Saturday said in his opening statement, like your press conference, like, oh well, if I'm not good after 8 games, then I just quit. But no, these other coaches who have put the time, the effort, and the energy to do this don't get that opportunity to just quit, right? They don't get that opportunity to just get 8 games and see if you can do it or not, regardless if you win or lose. I mean, let's be honest. You put in Matt Ryan, you got your starting running back, you ran the ball a little bit more, you played the 32nd ranked defense. Like, it is what it is. You were still in a dogfight. And so, do I think it's a good move? I don't know. I don't know. Do I think it's unfair? Very much so. I think there's a lot of coaches who deserve that job on that roster. I mean, you could have used Gus Bradley as the interim head coach, right? The same thing. You could have used Reggie Wayne, who was a former player there, in your Ring of Honor, who actually had to do he interned there for 3 years and then finally became the assistant or the receiver coach this year. You had the quarterbacks coach who I heard, turned down the play call. Like, there was just so many different people. And the running back coach who was coached for multiple years that could have gotten that job. Like, there's so many different guys that do it. And for you to just say, and again, it's your company, you're going to do it your way, right? But then I guess the uproar is, don't talk to me about diversity and inclusion and you're just going to do this, right? Just tell me you're going to do it how you want to do it. And I'd rather you just tell me that, and then we just don't cry and complain about it.
How bad are the Raiders, your former team?
Terrible. And so I'll tell you this. This is my take on it, and I should have said it last night on TV, but I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm ready to go there yet, but then I slept on it, I'm ready to go there.
Nice. Very good.
So I'm going to give it to you all. I'll give it to you all.
Nice.
This is the problem when you get guys that come from New England, okay? We all want – every organization wants what that dynasty that the Patriots have, and you try to go and get it. But the reason that dynasty was there was because of 2 people, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. All those other guys were just pawns in the grand scheme of things. You saw Matt Patricia go to Detroit, destroy that organization.
Mangini destroyed 2 organizations a while back.
Yeah.
Charlie Weiss.
Charlie Rice. They all do it. I mean, the most successful one was Bill O'Brien. And look how the Texans are after he left, right? Like, they still can't figure out what's up and down and left or right. So these guys come in here and they destroy organizations over and over and over again. And this is the second time this guy has done this. And and this is the other problem. Rich Bisaccia took a team in the middle of your coach getting called a racist or saying some racist things, a player getting in a ton of trouble and killing someone for drinking and driving, and you had another player on social media like threatening people with guns and all these different things, and yet he still finds a way to get them to the playoffs and almost beat the team that represented the AFC in the Super Bowl.
So
they're 8 yards away from beating them. Why move on? And exactly, that's my question. Why move on? So now we move on to a coach who says, well, these kids aren't good enough. These players aren't good enough for me. So we're going to trade Yannick Ngakoue, and we're going to add Chandler Jones, who has a half a sack in 10 games, or how many ever games it is, right? We're going to trade. We're going to go cut this guy. We're going to cut all these players. We're going to cut John Abrams. We're going to cut all these guys, and we're going to do all this, and we're going to do all that. And you're 2-7. And it's like, we got to see the bigger picture. The bigger picture was for you to be able to take this team and push them forward. But every time a New England coach comes out of New England and they go to another place, they destroy that organization every time, because it's the way they talk to people, the way they treat people, the certain things that they do when things don't go their way. And then you have your quarterback on national television crying last night because they're doing everything they can and it's just not working. And so now you're just trying to figure out, how do you fix this mess, right? Do you stick with them? Because Denver stuck with them, right?
Yeah, they did.
It didn't work out. So I ask myself all the time, and I'm a big advocate, why does Josh McDaniels keep getting opportunities?
You're not wrong. Especially after what he did to the Colts. I thought that was pretty dirty.
What he did to the Colts, what he did to when he was the OC for the Rams at one point for a year or so, what he did to the Broncos, but he goes to New England, he wins some games back in the same system. Like, maybe he just should be a New England guy.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be for a long time. By the way, I'll add one other thing. I think they would have cut Josh Jacobs if he wasn't under contract. I mean, they didn't give him a 50-year option, and they probably should have picked that up. I do say I get your sentiments a little bit. I wonder, because New England, and by the way, Belichick has found himself in this situation this year.
Yeah.
They didn't name an offensive coordinator. I
Or
think
defensive
sometimes
coordinator.
everybody labels Belichick the
we
genius.
didn't even say Joe Judge.
Yeah,
What he
Joe
did in New
Judge, that's
York.
right. So
And look at Brian Dable, what he's doing with the same roster.
yeah, that's true. Now, he was in New England for a little bit, but then he went to Buffalo first. But I think they try to outsmart everybody.
Yeah.
And Belichick has found himself in this situation with their offense this year. Their offense is terrible. They have not one voice in their offense. They don't know who's calling plays. They actually have Patricia's like a defensive guy, like doing it. Like, just go get an offensive coordinator. I think sometimes they outsmart, and then Josh McDaniels and other guys say, hey, we got to be the smartest guy in the room if we're going to be like the New England Patriots. I don't think it works that way all the time.
And I'm no fan of Josh McDaniels, but I'm looking at the Raiders going, how much of this also falls on Mike Mayock, though? You're talking about now you've got multiple draft picks from the Mayock era, first or second rounders that they've just cut during their rookie contract. They're like, no,
well, that's
thanks.
part of it.
We're going to move on from you guys. I mean,
But why? How does that fall on Mike Mayock? Like, you cut him and you're 2-7. Maybe you needed those guys.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Like, you traded guys that they brought in that, again, was good enough. They were good enough to go to the playoffs last year.
Yeah, and I still think the Bisaccia thing is the one. I mean, it's like you had a good thing going. At least you could have tested it out a little bit more.
Rode with it a little bit.
So
They did it in
Brought in
Cleveland.
hold on. How about this? Think about this. You brought in Devontae Adams, and you've gotten worse.
Yeah.
How?
And Chandler Jones. I mean, Chandler Jones was really good until this year, but obviously,
that's all I'm asking is that eventually the coach has to answer the question. And I you know what? I should have said it last night, and I apologize to people. So I'm giving the Jags first. I'm gonna have to tweet it out like, it's really the coach that's the problem in this situation. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It's the same players. It's the head coach.
Yeah.
He has to answer those questions. Why are you guys 2-7 when last year you went to the playoffs?
This is interesting. This is an interesting thread we should pull at some point. The Bill Belichick coaching tree and how poorly it's fared in the NFL. Guys like Al Groh, who coached my Jets to a miserable season. Nick Saban, we know how that floundered in the NFL. Romeo
Miami,
Crennel.
that was terrible.
Terrible. Romeo Crennel has not had success in the NFL. Eric Mangini was a failure in the NFL. Jim Schwartz did not do well in Detroit. I mean, the names go on. McDaniels, there's still more of them.
And by the way, people are still in love with the Patriots organization and the way they do things. Like that, they really are. But I think Mojo's initial point of it's Brady and Belichick carries a lot of weight. And Brady, to me, carries a lot of weight because since he's left, they've been
a
just
disaster.
okay. Well, just okay, even in
this
New
year's
England.
been bad, yeah.
Hey,
They
one
went to the playoffs last year and lost by 40.
Yeah, they actually coached that up pretty good last year, I thought. See, McDaniels in that system, in that place, can be a good coach in that role. But he obviously has proven that he's not a very good head coach, and he's got multiple chances to do it. Hey, real quick, I thought Johnny Wolford would look better, our Bishop Kenny guy, Jacksonville guy yesterday. The Rams look broken right now, and they just can't fix that offense.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I think and I've said this, and I'll stick to it. The National Football League is about talent, right? And you have to have talented players on there. I'm not saying that they don't have talented guys, but when you have so many guys on IR and so many different things, they're not going to say this is an excuse, but how do you go out there with your third left tackle, your third left guard, your third right guard, and you expect to win games, right? How do you go out there playing, your starting running back at the beginning of the year hasn't really played as much, so then you started the guy that was starting the year before. Like, they just offensively, they have no cohesiveness, no chemistry right now. A lot of it is just because they don't have a lot of guys to go with. You can't drop back and throw the ball. John Wolford did a really good job of what he was asked to do. They played two quarterbacks yesterday. We all know the adage: if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. Mm-hmm. And so it just they're trying to figure out anything to get this thing going. But at the end of the day, when you leverage your roster to win a Super Bowl and you win it, this is kind of the part that comes with it when guys get hurt. And so they're going to keep fighting and trying to figure it out, but it's hard. And right now they lost Cup for probably a couple weeks. I don't know how many, but there goes another piece.
By the way, like, careful walking on the sidewalk in L.A. I mean, the Chargers and the Rams, holy cow, the injuries those guys have.
And I feel like we asked this. Go ahead, Maurice.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's do you remember that year we had, was it 2008, when everyone got hurt for us?
Yeah.
And we were battling. We're battling. Guys are giving it their all, but when a guy is a special teams player or a reserve player, it's hard to have him start and play pivotal reps, because there's a reason he's a reserve guy. There's a reason you got a guy in front of him, right? But when that guy gets hurt, your play is going to drop a little bit just because he wasn't deemed the starter. He didn't earn that right to be the starter.
Yeah, and by the way, the Rams are a little reminiscent of even the Jags in 2018. Jags have a big year in 2017. They get off to a decent start, actually better than the Rams have, and then everybody got hurt. Now, Blake played bad and other things were going on, but everybody did get hurt that year, so it's kind of happening with the Rams. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, I feel like we ask Maurice this question every couple of weeks, but the Allen Robinson missing persons report, have you seen him around town lately? I mean, in the beginning of the year, he wasn't seeing many targets, new team. I'm sure he's getting acclimated, but the targets have gone up. The production's kind of stayed consistent with Cup out for the next few weeks. You kind of need the help there, don't you?
Yeah, he's going to have to be the guy. And the one thing about Allen is he's always been like 2 or 3 in the progression, right? And a lot of times Cup is number 1 in the progression, and then he kind of feed off that. When you have a guy that won the Triple Crown, you always want to put him number 1 because he becomes that coverage dictator. He becomes that guy that if they take him away, you should have a guy coming right behind him. And Allen's always been the guy on the backside that's, if they take both those guys away, he gets there. And obviously a lot of times, Cup finds his way to get open. But it's important. Look, there's a reason you paid him all that money, and I think they're starting to figure out how to utilize him. John found him a couple times yesterday on some crossing routes out of play action pass. But again, like, new system, new team, things don't click always the way they normally do. But it seems like Stafford should be back this week, hopefully, and if he's back from getting out of concussion protocol, that Allen to be number 1 in those progression reads, and it's going to be important for him to showcase him being a number 1 wide receiver like he's been in the past here for the Rams.
All right, Maurice Jones Drew, congrats on the championship, and glad you're feeling better. And thanks for jumping in for a little bit. We'll do it again next week. Actually, we probably won't do it again next week because the Jags don't even play. Maybe we'll see.
No,
if you want to talk to us.
Do it.
Okay, good.
I always want to talk to you guys. I missed you guys. Man. I'm sorry. I was doing a lot of traveling and it was a lot. It kind of caught up with me, but I'm back now.
That's all right. That's good.
I'm happy to have this bye week and see how the Jags come out of this bye ready to roll.
I told you, Trevor's playing well, man. Last 2 weeks, Trevor's playing well. That's a good news. Like, I'm really, to watch the next 7 games, I think are critical to see where he can take this thing, because we'd feel pretty good about it, minus the wins, if Trevor continues on this track.
Right.
That's the big deal over the next 7 weeks. All right, go have a good week, and then we'll talk to you next Monday.
All right, see you guys later.
All right, that is Maurice Jones Drew, and thanks for saving the good stuff on the Raiders for us instead of NFL Network.
Giving us the scoop.
Yeah, we definitely got to get that up quickly.